Hello, welcome to the Bigger Truth podcast. We are live on X, Facebook, YouTube. We will be posting, I'll be posting later on this evening on the Substack, and then it'll also go live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those. So I'm glad that you're here with us live, and you're welcome to comment, question as we go. We have Tatiana Penas on today, and I am Tatiana, I'm so excited and so glad that you agreed to come on the show. Since I first heard your story from others, I was intrigued about you, and we've been talking now for a few weeks. So, just I'm really grateful that you're here. I think that your show or your story is it really points to the effects, really more than anything else, the effects and intents of this operation. And you're not alone. The story that I think you're going to be telling is one that people in other states will relate to as well, and I'm sure throughout Arizona. So let's just thank you for being here. And you are just as a way of introduction, you're the second vice chair for Maricopa Republican Committee, which we'll call MCRC. Mm-hmm. You're also in Legislative District 11 is where you are, which is South Phoenix. Can I say that's the hood? I mean, it's kind of
the
hood. It is a majority minority district, and it's deep blue. And nobody had even run for state house or senate in years before you came on the scene. And how old were you when you decided to run? And how many kids did you have and all that?
Oh my goodness, you're aging me now, Scott. I think this was like almost 6 years ago. I'm 41. I was like, I don't know, 35, 30.
Okay.
Yeah,
so young woman. And
yeah. And I had, when I ran the first time, I was running with my fourth baby. So I was expecting my fourth baby. I had 3 babies already. So I got involved in the Republican Party actually in 2017. And the reason why I decided to get involved actually was because I was paying attention to what was going on in our country. And I followed Donald Trump pretty closely. And I hated what the media was saying about him and, making these claims that, the Republicans hate Latinos, the Republicans are anti-immigrant. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, everything he's saying is what they say on Univision and Telemundo, like all my life. This is what they would be talking about, La Frontera, the border. This is what we're seeing, the cartels are sex trafficking and people are being killed and murdered. And I mean, it was what we were used to seeing in the Spanish media. And it was not a secret that was a dangerous thing that we needed to solve. And, immigrants were suffering and everything. So I knew that was all baloney. And I also knew that what I was seeing from the left was too extreme and counter to everything I grew up with in my Hispanic immigrant home. Both my parents are from Central America. My dad's from Honduras. My mom's from Costa Rica. I was born here in Arizona and born into the hood, basically. Our family, we were always in South Phoenix. My parents still live in South Phoenix. So I'm a native to the South Phoenix area. I went to school here, went to church here, grew up with family that served the community and loved the community in every way that they could, and tried to be as honest as they could be in their work and their dealings. They served. Both my parents were public school teachers. So that was my background. And I'm like, you know what? I want to be able to participate in this process because I know government is for the people of the people, right? And it's those people that get involved that matter, right? So I went to my first precinct committeeman meeting in 2017 and became a precinct committee member and started slowly trying to learn and understand how everything works. But around 2019, my husband and I ended up moving back to South Phoenix. We found and part of moving into the area that was kind of a reason why I was like, is this the right thing for me to do? Is I knew I would never have a Republican to vote for. You know, it was pretty normal growing up that you would only see Democrats running for office, and even some positions, no one running for office. We had a low voter turnout. The only people that were really actively involved in the community, making any differences or trying to have any impact, it wasn't really being seen from the Republican Party. And I'm not trying to discredit those people who were involved as PCs back then. It's just they were far outnumbered and the party wasn't supporting them, you know? And so when I moved in, I said, well, hon, if there's no one else to vote for, then I'll run. I'll do it. And part of the reason why I decided to run was because of my passion to stand for what's right. And I felt really strongly that I needed to defend the preborn. So I'm not at the Capitol today. There's actually a pro-life rally and I would have been there, but instead I'm going to be here with my solidarity to save babies. And I've always been unapologetically pro-life and trying to say the truth, as well as defending the innocence of children, defending our moral values that have been under attack by the left. And we just cannot, we got to stand firm. Anyways,
yeah,
I moved back to my community, decided to run for office, started knocking doors, started getting, going to community events, started, I had a logo and I still use my logo, but my logo is a heart. And it says Tatiana Penas in the middle. And I came up with that logo because the message behind it, which is we have to love our community. I love my community. I love my community so much that I'm going to do everything possible to fight for it and to give our community a voice and, just opportunities that we've been missing because we have been forgotten and we have been lost.
So how many doors did you knock on when you ran for?
So I have an estimate. It's an estimate of, I would say probably around 10,000 the first time and maybe around 10,000, give or take, the second time, because I ran in 2020, I ran in 2022. And what I started learning was that the only reason why we were voting Democrat in our community was because there was no Republican there. Like, if the Democrats go to every single door and they say, do you want to register to vote? And then the people are like, well, I don't know what I am. Oh, well, you should be a Democrat. All the Latinos are Democrat. We support you guys. All Black voters are Democrat. You're expected to be a Democrat. Oh, you're in the community. Well, we have Democrats supporting you. They're the only ones that care about you. Well, they weren't lying. They weren't lying. There was no Republicans running for office, so how are people supposed to be like, no, I'm going to be a Republican? Most voters don't look further into understanding things. So I was on a mission to change that. I was on a mission to educate people and in a loving manner, just to share with them, hey, this is what a Republican looks like. This is what a Republican is. It can be someone like me. It can be someone like you. But this is where our values are at. If you identify with these values, then welcome to the Republican Party. We have our arms wide open for you. And that's how you change the hearts and the minds of people so that you can change the way that they vote. People here are sick and tired of the defunding the police movement. One thing that I did in 2020 is I actually exposed the two incumbents I was running against for what they were doing, which was running around saying they wanted to defund the police. Now, if you see what the Democrats do in Arizona, they're very quiet. They don't say defund the police anymore. Another thing I did is I was sick and tired of them constantly labeling the Latino community as Latinx. So they were trying to, take away gender from our own language. And so I started calling them out for that too. Now they're like, that's being rejected. So it's things like that I did that made a big difference. I was really successful at recruiting precinct committee members. Also people that wanted to be volunteers. In 2020, when I ran, the party saw the efforts and how serious I was as a candidate, running and especially getting campaign funds, because I ran as a clean candidate. So they reached out to me and they're like, hey, do you think you guys want an office there? And I said, yes, get us an office. So I advocated for us to get an office, and we ended up having the Latinos for Trump office here in South Phoenix. It was amazing. It was incredible. We did a lot of good events there. We did a lot of outreach in the community. It was beautiful. And then in 2022, same thing happened, but it wasn't the Latinos for Trump office. It was the RNC Latino Outreach Office. So those are some of the things that we did. We would have big, tours of, rallies coming through with great candidates coming through. And we did, we were not quiet. And you could tell that this shook the Democrats. They decided, oh my goodness, they have a Latinos for Trump office. So they ended up getting an office too. And then in 2022, they ended up getting an office before we did because they were that scared. So, I mean, like, I don't know, man. What do I tell you? And then I saw that they had hired people to go and, do ballot harvesting or chasing. I don't know which of the both they were doing, but yeah, they were definitely going door to door trying to get people to vote. So I do see that they had a system in place to make sure even if their candidates were not out there and doing anything and, Joe Biden in the basement, they still had people getting those ballots. But anyways, that's kind of a little bit about like the efforts I've made. And people remember me to this day, just because how effective I was with my marketing, with my logo, with there was one point I had toilet paper rolls in 2020 and I wrapped them. I said, with love, TP, because my initials are TP, right? Awesome. And that's a nickname I've had. I've been teased with all my life, TP. So I went ahead and ran with it. And people are still like, I remember I got my toilet paper roll from you.
Well, and that's when toilet paper was extremely valuable.
Yeah.
All the stores were running out, right?
Yep. So so that's a little bit about me. And another thing that people don't know is that I've recruited a lot of our candidates that have ran here since I got involved. Most of the candidates had some form of connection with me and some sort of support, either getting their signatures or just helping them out so that they weren't alone. People take it for granted how much work it takes to find candidates to run for office. Even in red districts, it's challenging. And so to find people willing that are halfway decent even to go out there in a very predominantly blue district and to feel confident to run out in the open as a Republican is a huge, huge win, you guys. And I've recruited almost all of them here in our area. And that's because I really want our community to see we care.
Right. And it shows that, also, you care. You're doing this for the party. You're doing this for other candidates. This isn't all about Tatiana Pena. This is, really about, doing the best that you can for the state and for your community. And you've made yourself a fixture in the community, really, in what you're doing. So, so you're what we want, everywhere. In the party. I mean, this is what the Republican Party really should want. And yet the party has been working to destroy you. And so that's really where what the reason why you're on the show is to tell the story about how this happened. Now offline, you told me that they were doing things, kind of little things, to try to thwart you to a certain extent in your 2022 race. But we're going to skip ahead to right after that, immediately after that, to the December, and this was at the beginning of December, right? The election for the LD leadership. And so this is the leadership, the newly elected leadership. There was an election, and this is right afterwards. You want to talk about this picture?
Yes. And then 2 corrections.
Okay.
First one, it's not the party that's doing this. It's a group within the party.
Exactly.
And then second, this was actually the very end of November. I'm not sure if it was the 29th or the 30th. So it was right before December.
But it was after the 22 election.
Yes. It was after the 2022 election. And we had a reorganizational meeting for Legislative District 11, Republicans. At that point, I had decided that I was going to support a fellow precinct committee member. His name is Joe Daly. He had reached out to me because he was thinking about running for the board. And because of my experience working with the board prior to that, I knew that there was a lot of imbalance, power imbalance there. And I knew that I had received many complaints from people, and I personally experienced things where I understood that Julie McIlwain, she's the one sitting in front with the hair. She had been the previous,
there.
yeah, with our back to us there. She had been the previous second vice chair, and what I was understanding from, again, many people coming to me and complaining, she was the one running the show. She was the one telling everyone how to do things. There was no getting by her. And she was working very closely with Cheryl. But Cheryl at the time was always really nice to me, really kind. And I had done a lot for Cheryl to help her and her family out, just because, I always care to help and help people and their families, whatever I can do to make things easier for people, right? So, but Cheryl was kind of close with me, and then Julie was working with them, and I was just focused on my campaign. Now, I'm not going to go through what happened in 2022, but just so people kind of understand, I was running my own campaign, and I had the second vice chair and the board, which at that point it was really only 3 people because they had ostracized everyone else. They had all given up. They didn't want to be part of that board anymore because of how hostile it was. But I was, they were trying to tell me, you can only walk in these areas. You can only do this. And I'm like, I'm my own campaign. I have my own strategy. You do not own me. And they were not only trying to control me, they were trying to control the RNC office that we had at the time. They're trying to control the manager who was running it. It was so much of like, you need to do what we tell you to do. And it was very hostile environment. It was not okay. Part of what their beef with me also was I had a difference of opinion of who to support for the city council race in 2022. There was originally one Republican running, and I would never bow down to that golden calf ever. And I never will. And I will say that over and over again to anyone who hears me. I'm serious. There was no way I was going to, and I was very kind to him. And I just told him, no, thank you. I don't feel confident. I had my personal reasons. We could go on that another day, but I supported a different Republican candidate. I had every right to. She had every right to run for office, and because of that, they went after me. They went after that other candidate in 2022. So I had gone through all of this nonsense where we're in a blue district and you're attacking me. You're attacking her. You're very hostile to your fellow colleagues who just quit the board. And you're hostile to a lot of people and you're too bossy. And this is a little too out of control. So I knew that was that personality that we were dealing with Julie McIlwain. So here comes Joe. And he's like, I'm thinking of running for the board. They're saying I should run for third vice chair. I said, why are they going to put a third vice chair? We only have 51 precinct committee members. This is a small group, and don't burn out everyone so fast by putting them in leadership positions. No, I'm like, how about, and I because he's like, is there another that I should replace? I said, well, Julie's not nice. She's awful. And so I was like, well, if you want to run for that seat, you got my support. I'll endorse you. And he ran from the floor and he beat her. He beat her badly. It was 34-16. 34-16. There were 51 votes. There were 51 votes. 34 went to him. 16 went to her.
Yeah. And so this is immediately aftermath. And we can't see Julie's face, unfortunately. What, was she a little upset about that?
Oh gosh, I've never seen anyone so visibly upset about something this is being you're involved in an LD board. Like we're all volunteers here, you guys. Like no one's getting paid for this. No one. You have no right to control people. You are just a community volunteer, right? And she acted like it was like robbing her of something. She was in tears, visibly mad. And then you can kind of see Cheryl's the one in the glasses, the one on closest to the guy with the mic. That was at the time the chair. Cheryl, even though she was chair prior to this, she wasn't really the chair. It was Julie making all these decisions, and kind of like that's kind of how I saw things going. But Cheryl, you could see that she was trying to force that smile. They were not happy. They were not happy about it at all. And then you see Joe. Joe's the guy in the middle, right underneath the RNCC, the one with the beard. That's Joe Daly, that won that seat, and he was really happy and excited to be able to serve. Now the next slide, we can go to that now. This is a text message that night that Joe Daly received. I don't know if you wanted to read that one, Scott.
Yeah, sure. So it says, I'll read the whole thing. It's kind of lengthy, but bear with me because I think it really helps us to understand her character. So Joe said first, he says, I'm sorry you got hurt. And so he's reaching out in a conciliatory way to Julie, and he says, I'm sorry you got hurt. I do like you, and I know you put your heart into the LD. It was a hard decision to run, but I'm more than willing to have a conversation if you want. And she says, fortunately, Joe, I don't need to talk to you to know you drank the Tatiana Kool-Aid. I know what you did was not in the best interest of the LD, and it was personal no matter what you say. You said you didn't have time to be on the board when asked, and you were also told you could run as third vice chair, but instead you helped to oust the hardest working PC and board member. Good luck trying to fill my shoes. It won't be easy. I'm just going to try not to laugh. It won't be easy, and I doubt you will be able to. While I work and take classes at night, I lived and breathed every remaining minute for this LD. I personally delivered 2,300 golden tickets by myself, and no one came close to the work I did. I may just go and find somewhere else to devote my time that will be more appreciated. So thank you for showing me who you really are and how little you actually care about our LD, right? He doesn't care about the LD. That's why he ran. But this is this is right up there with the most narcissistic communication that I've seen. She is the LD in her eyes, and she flat out says she's the hardest working person in the LD. The LD can't even function without her. And so anyone who would want to remove her obviously doesn't care about the LD, which is wild. Before we go further into that, we just have a couple comments here. Joe Brandis in Michigan says, GOP should be very aligned with Latinos, strong family values, religious, many small business owners, very hardworking community. Tatiana, thank you for all you are doing for our country. And Anchor Baby Abe says, Tatiana is awesome, hardest worker I know. So what is there anything? I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, but is there anything?
Yeah, that right there was, I mean, I had already experienced her hostility and how she treats others. And then this right there, when he received that, I was like, who does that? Who in the world sends a scathing text the night of? And I didn't give you this copy, but she sent me a text that night too. And she said, I hope you're happy. So something like that, like, hope you're proud of yourself, something like that. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I did not feel comfortable. I was like, this woman took this to an extent. And you have to understand, I understand loss. I understand running for a position, giving your all, working your butt off for it and losing. I lost in 2020. I lost in 22. And there was one time for like a split second, I made a decision one night to run for chair, and I gave myself like one day, and I lost that one too. And life goes on. life goes on. This is not the end of the world. We are all volunteers. We all have opportunities to serve. We all have talents and skills. So for her to take it to that extent, also, I took an offense to her thinking that she was the hardest working in the entire LD, because I can name several individuals that were very hard workers that could put her to shame, So I thought that was very, yeah, she was just,
Yeah.
and I don't like to, I like to try to stay as like humble as possible. I don't like to be tooting my horn much, but after seeing what they've done to me, which I'll get further into, after seeing what they've done to me, I've learned that I have to speak up and let people know what I'm actually doing, because they're not hearing anything. They're only hearing what, other people want to say and make stories about me, So, but no, that was shocking what she did. And after that, I was like, okay, this is interesting. So
Yeah. Being a good loser is that's an important part of politics, especially. And Basil Fernamos said that yesterday when I interviewed him yesterday. He had worked on Daniel McCarthy's campaign for Senate, and he said that all Daniel needed to be was a good loser. Had he been a good loser when he lost that, he would have had something really good to build on for the future. But he was not a good loser. And here we see, this is a much smaller role, second vice chair of a fairly small LD, and she's about as bad a loser as you can get. So let's move on.
Yeah. So before we get to this one, I'm going to explain what led up to this. So the following day, I actually I put in a statement of interest to run for second vice chair of the Maricopa County Republican Committee. I had just sent a small email to Mickey Nyland, who at that time was the chair of the MCRC, and I did not say anything about it the night before at the meeting, because I was not decided at that point. I had been approached about, hey, will you run for this? We'd love to have your input. We'd love to have your strength and your knowledge on the board to help Maricopa County, right? Because they saw what I was doing in South Phoenix. They're like, wow, if she's able to move mountains in South Phoenix, she could probably do it in other areas too. And so I was praying about it, fasting about it. And that following day, which was a Wednesday, I was like, I talked to my husband. I was like, I think I'll do it. And he's like, okay, I support you. So I sent a small email telling Mickey Nyland that I was interested in running for second vice chair. And I also just, shared that I think she's doing a good job, because, it's hard being a leader. You have to encourage them. Anyways, later on that Wednesday afternoon, I start receiving screenshots, lots of screenshots from people. Which do you have that screenshot? Let's put the screenshot first.
Sure. Which this one here?
Yeah, because it's in this order. So I started receiving a lot of screenshots, and this was one of them. But the screenshots was basically from a patriot group of some sort. And, I have friends in all sorts of places. So one of my friends started saying, Tatiana, they're talking about you. They're talking badly about you. This person's going off on you and totally saying things about you that are just not nice. And I was able to identify the phone number and pointed out that it was Julie McIlwain. And so you could kind of see the end of the first text message where she's, railing against me, saying that I put in my interest to run for second vice chair. Now, mind you, I did not make this public. I sent a private email to Mickey Nyland alone. And before you know it, Julie McIlwain, sore loser from the night before, decides to go attacking me and my character on a thread with a bunch of people who probably didn't know me. And what you don't see in this this screenshot was she actually, because there was multiple texts I received. So she was saying things like, I'm a rhino. She said that I supported a bad candidate. She was saying that I think she even said I was racist maybe at that point. I've just heard so many things from her, but she was saying that I get paid by the establishment, lots of money for all sorts of things that I do. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never gotten paid for any of these roles that I've done. It's all been volunteer.
Well, right here, she's saying, if you know any other LD chairs within Maricopa County, let them know that she's a rhino and not America First. So she's trying to get ahead. You haven't even announced your candidacy.
I hadn't even announced my candidacy, and she had screenshot my entire email was just like a short paragraph, screenshot it that I had sent to Mickey Nyland and posted it on that thread. Okay. And I was like, how did she get access to this? But if you look forward, this is where you're like, oh my gosh, what are these people doing? You want to read that, Scott? I think you can see it better.
It says, my chair is the same, so we are good there. Cheryl Rosato. Actually, our tally and credential team made a mess and said I lost by 7 when she actually lost by 17 by a 2-to-1 margin. My chair counted today and I lost by 1, and 1 ballot was spoiled and 1 ballot is missing. So I may contest after our new public count.
Yeah, 34 to 16 is not a difference of 7, you guys. Is it 18 or 17? I thought it was 18.
Yeah, 34 to 17 or 16. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's not that small of a margin, right? So here she is claiming that she only lost by 7, which was a lie. And then she's saying that her chair recounted them and she only lost by 1. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. What's going on here? Why are you counting ballots after the fact? Isn't there a ballot chain of custody? Aren't we supposed to? And you have to remember that election, no one contested it. We all finalized the results. We were all okay with the results. We left home. We just took it, go wipe your tears and get on with the show. That's how life is, right? No. We found out that Cheryl was counting the ballots at home. Now you can go to the, let's go to the next.
So what date do you think this was sent?
This was that Wednesday. So when it's the same day that this email was sent.
So now we're in December. And
hold on. No, it's not that one.
This one here.
Yep, November 30th. So yes, November 30th was the following, that day that I started receiving the screenshots, and then I get this email. And if you can read that.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read it. It says, all thank you. And this is from Cheryl Rosato on November 30th. It says, thank you so much for turning out for our reorganization meeting last night. It was truly wonderful to see everybody. Unfortunately, we had some errors tallying last night's vote. I believe this will change the outcome of the state committeeman election. So we will be doing a public recount of the vote Saturday at 3 p.m. at Jeremiah Coda's home. And newly elected, Jeremiah, newly elected treasurer John Buchholz, and I will be counting the ballots. Please attend if you would like to watch the process. An email will go out afterwards with the results. So
yeah, and I mean, if you're for election integrity, everything about this should be like raising all of your red flags. Everything. Like, you have an angry person that lost, clearly is so upset that she needs to, lash out at the person that beat them. Then she and her girlfriend that have been mean girls for like a year prior to that, bullying everyone. They are, communicating about recounting these ballots at home. This is not any secure process. I mean, it could be Mother Teresa doing this. And I'd still be like, why did you break the ballot chain of custody? Why don't we have something in place to do this in a secure manner? Right. Yep. So, of course, I didn't start trusting it at all.
Right. Ballots are just like a black and white printed 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Right.
It was just it's just like a regular Microsoft, regular font.
Very easily have thrown away ballots and just printed up new ones.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm an investigator. Like, I'm not an official, but I like to investigate stuff like this, So I'm like, okay, what happened? Okay, where are the extra ballots? Who had the original copy of the ballots? I knew how simple those ballots were. I knew that it wasn't anything like, no watermark, nothing that it's like hard to remake them. I called Jeremiah. Jeremiah tells me that the PDF file, Cheryl had the PDF file. I started calling the people who counted the tallying committee. That was Becky Kaufman. There was Stephanie Zink and Jeremiah Cota. Jeremiah wasn't actually counting. He was just kind of like observing off to the side. It was actually Becky Kaufman and Stephanie Zink. Okay. And then I asked them, What process did you use for counting these ballots? Well, first they looked at, remember, this is the one and only contested race in this entire election, you know, as far as for the board, the one and only contested race, 51 potential voters. Okay. So they looked at the ballots. Okay, this one says Joe. Okay, put it in the Joe pile. This one says Julie. Put it in the Julie pile. Okay, you take the Joe pile. I take the Julie pile. And they counted them. Then they swapped it, counted them again, swapped it, counted it again. And then Becky told me that she went through again to double verify that the ones that said Joe did in fact say Joe. The ones that said Julie did in fact say Julie. I'm like, that sounds like a pretty solid, simple procedure. What did they notice? One person just didn't vote. So there was one blank ballot as well.
And that's what this email is about, right?
And this is easy to manipulate. That's, you know, if you have, so Cheryl had the one blank ballot, that could be easy to reproduce. Then there was also the situation that they had the PDF file. That's easy to manipulate as well. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, if you want to have election integrity, you're not going to be sitting there taking these home, recounting them, say, hey, we're going to go to my house on Saturday and we're going to have a public recount. And I also knew that this wasn't even about, because she was saying that, oh, you know, we're worried about the state committeeman positions. I'm like, I don't believe that's at all what's going on here. I believe they're going to find an excuse to redo this board race. I'm like, that's what they're trying to get down to. I mean, that's just where my spidey senses went, right?
And you were exactly right.
What was that?
You were exactly right.
Oh, exactly. Well, and the thing is, I called Cheryl. I actually called Cheryl with, at the time, my friend, she's now passed on, Lisa Blankenship, was on the call. And so was Becky Kaufman. We were like, what is this all about? This is confusing. We called Cheryl to ask questions about this whole situation. And she's like, well, why don't you just not have any trust in me? I'm like, you could be Mother Teresa. You broke the ballot chain of custody. How can I trust this? How could anyone trust this? You know? And so I just kept investigating. I found out, you know, because I was like, where did all the extra ballots go? I went to the office. I found out that they just put them in the trash can, you know, and I counted those. And when I counted those, the count made sense because I asked, and I forgive me that I don't know how many total at this point right now, but I remember Jeremiah told me how many copies of the ballots he brought with him. So I counted what was left in the trash can. That made sense with what was actually the numbers that were given by Becky and Stephanie. And both, you know, Becky's like, I'm not stupid. I know how to count. This is not something difficult. This is insulting to my intelligence, right, to say that I screwed this election up so badly.
Right. And what they're saying, the scale to which they're saying that she miscounted. So, you know, we're counting to a ground total of 50 votes, right? And so it was 34-16 right here, what I highlighted. And all of this, if you can't read it in the video, in the show notes on the Substack, I'll have all the originals here. And the result of their recount was 24-23. I mean, that's really, I don't know how much more you need to say that. And this is by the people who claim continuously. These people claim continuously to be the only ones in the party that care about election integrity. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with this. We've said the same thing about LD26 when I had Forrest on, and about LD4 when I had Morgan on, and we talked about it with Andrew with LD. You know, they didn't get away with this in LD14 because he's done a really good job leading, and they just have different demographics there, so they've got a more rational base. And you know, but you know, Shelby Busch herself was involved in this sham of a thing in LD26. And then on Friday, I'm going to have the interesting thing about this is that this email right here was sent on December 3rd, which is the day after pandemonium that occurred in LD3 when Candace Zarni was elected. And Candace, she'll be on Friday, and she's going to tell the story. But what's interesting is that, you know, so this timing, this is all happening at the same time. Mm-hmm. As literally the moment Candace was elected is when Brian Ference started getting involved there. And so what is, I know that there's more that you can point to further down, but before we get too far into this, I want to show, the last email here, they're referencing MCRC. They say, there's a process. If you don't like this, you can contest it with MCRC. Here's the contact information for the board, and so on and so forth. So they, they're kind of bringing MCRC into it a little bit. So I'll let you talk to Brian Ference a little bit, and what the relationship is there with Julie McIlwain.
So, at this point, I'm seeing what's going on, and I'll let you know that at that point, I had no idea who Brian Ference was. I didn't know. He didn't matter to me. He was nothing. Why? Because no one cares about that guy. No one's heard of him in our district. Like, my focus up to that point was always out in the community, knocking on doors, talking to people, doing events, registering voters. That was always my focus, outward focus. So now that I think back, like, ever since I'd started figuring out who this character, Brian Ference, was, I started to remember that I would hear that name in passing from Cheryl, from Julie, and I was like, I don't know who this person is. They're inconsequential to me. I don't care who they are. They're not helping my community, right? But
we're talking about him even before this, is what you're saying.
Yes, this is when I had, I would hear his name, but to me, he didn't matter because he's not helping register any voters. He's not helping get any candidates to run for office here. He's not working the polls. He's not doing anything so why would I be following someone who's not even being that example?
Right.
So, but I had heard of him, but later on when I figured out, okay, LD3 is going through something similar, that's really weird, and yes, this was happening simultaneously while LD3 was going on.
Right.
LD11 was going through this. I was reaching out to Mickey Nyland. One of the first things I reached out to her, which we kind of went ahead of this, but I reached out to her. How in the world did my email get to Julie McIlwain? And she says, well, I don't know. I didn't give it to Julie McIlwain, but who's on the nominations committee? Cheryl Rosado. That's what happened. Cheryl, that day, mean girls having a fight, whatever, angry at me and whatever. She saw that email. She shared it with Julie. Later on, I ended up texting Cheryl, and this is during the whole investigation time, me trying to figure out, what are your motives? Why did you recount these things? I said, Cheryl, why did you share with Julie before it was public that I was running for second vice chair? Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, Tatiana. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I have an insider that showed me that Julie McIlwain was going on a rant against me on a thread, making all these false claims about me and then attacking me before I even publicly announced I was running for second vice chair. I'm like, why did you do that? Oh, I didn't do. She was in denial. I actually have the text threads for that too. She was in denial that she did this until I showed her, well, here's the screenshot. And here you can see that she has the entire email. She's like, oh, well, I forget that she was asking, how do people put in their statements of interest? I'm like, really? You think I'm that dumb?
Right. So, yeah, that's just
that whole text thread. But anyways, so let's go to now where that email, you want to read that one, Scott?
Yeah, so this is now 3 weeks later, and they're I don't need to read the whole email, but basically they're just calling for a new election, saying that the election was obviously flawed, so now we need to have a new election. They're basically forcing it down everyone's throats. They've made the dictatorial decision that the outcome of the first election was not satisfactory to them, so they are holding a new election.
No, let me correct you on that one, Scott.
Okay.
It wasn't that. Cheryl says that after much prayer,
right, right,
after much prayer about this,
right,
decided that she's not going to run for re-election, and she said that the first vice chair also decided that they're not going to run. So they basically stepped down.
Right.
That forced us to have a new election. It wasn't the MCRC saying we should have a new election. It was the fact that those two decided, oh, we're not going to serve in this position. And then before you know it, she continues that email with, oh, these are the positions that are open. And they had scheduled at that point that we were going to do an election on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. As if we just have nothing going on in life, as if we hadn't made family plans. We had one of our PCs that flew to Canada. And this was happening. There were so many of us that are like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
I was also told by Mickey Nyland that there was a ton of people emailing about this election in LD11 and the concerns that they had. Now, Cheryl's arguments were that, it's not going to have initially it wasn't going to have a difference on the outcome of the second vice chair, that it was all about the state committeeman position. Now, this is another thing I have to share. I was aware that that was her narrative that she was having. So I was like, okay, let me see who were the next vote getters. And I had about 3 different individuals that I suspected were the next vote getters, right? And so I reached out to them because Cheryl kept saying, oh, it's one other person, the last person that had been the chosen one for the state committeeman. It's wrong. It's possibly this next person here. And I remember we knew who those totals were, right? So I reached out to those last 3 and I started talking to them one by one. I said, hey, are you willing to just say, I don't care. I don't need to be a state committeeman. I'm removing my name from this so that we don't have to redo this election. So we could just stay with the results. And I'm sorry, we did jump forward because this was before she decided that she wasn't going to seek for, or she wasn't going to serve for first vice chair. This was right here when I was getting too close to follow her, to find out what she was up to. But so I did have those individuals each reach out to Cheryl and say, we don't need to be state committeemen. We don't want to cause a new election. And Cheryl would keep saying, oh, but you know what? We still need to go and do this because we're not sure if it's this person or if it was another person. And she would never say their name. So she would keep moving the bar every single time. And I'm like, wow, this weasel. So this was the ultimate, where that's why you got this email from her saying, after much prayer, I'm not going to be the chair. And that forced the election.
Right.
That's how much I was investigating this. Like, I was not letting them get away with this. And they didn't like it.
Right. So they knew that there was probably going to have to be a new election anyways, or you were just fighting to have the election results stand.
Yes.
Right.
You don't go and claim that the count was wrong. Oh, me and my husband just counted this at home. Trust us. That's not how that works. That's completely going against everything in place. It's supposed to make sure that we feel confident with our votes.
Right. Right.
We wouldn't accept that in any election. Why would we accept it with a small election of 51 votes?
Right. So then going forward from there, so that this election happened and Julie was elected. Is that right?
Yes.
So she was elected chair. So now she's Julie McIlwain, the narcissist who, and control freak, which is an accurate, I don't think that's a slander at all. That's a pretty accurate way of describing her. And she's now the chair of LD11. She still is to this day.
Yes. Let me, I don't think I had shared with you at that re-election. Guess who came to the re-election?
Oh, Brian Ference.
Yes.
So Brian Ference was there for the re-election in order to intimidate, harass, and make sure that it went.
Shelby Busch helped run that election.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing about Brian Ference is that he is he's a master at crowd manipulation. And I've watched videos of him do this in LD3. And that's, he coaches, it appears to me that he coaches people in advance, spreads them out in the crowd, and he's able to really manipulate a crowd. And this is something that we've seen others have the ability that others have had as well in many other states, including here in Michigan. So, it is no small thing that he would have shown up for that, for little LD11. And
they had to go his way.
Right. Exactly.
They had to go his way. Julie was one of his people.
Right.
It was his choice of leadership.
Yep. And election integrity expert Shelby Busch being there to run the election.
Exactly.
Right.
And
so,
another thing I was going to share with you is that, Julie may have won that chair election, but she was the last vote getter in the state committeeman election. She actually did not get elected as a state committeeman.
Wow.
We don't understand how that happened.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm baffled. I don't know how it happened, but Julie worked everything to make herself get that position of state committeeman for this last state committee meeting, which I'll go forward with that one in later on. But
so then let's go forward to there was a point now after a few months at which you decided to seek court help because of the harassment that you're receiving from her, and you got a temporary restraining order.
Yeah, I got an injunction. I want to make it clear what an injunction is, because the wonderful gossip folks that I have running around with nothing better to do have been saying that I sued her. No, I did not sue her. An injunction is when you go to the court to ask for relief from harassment from someone. And harassment is when you are just, anything that is, bullying, slandering, annoying someone, that can count as slander. And the judge or commissioner, in my case, it was a commissioner, they have to approve of this. You have to show what are your examples of how this is bothering. You need to have at least 2 strong examples. I had more than 2. And so what I had those texts of what she was doing in those threads, but she would regularly send emails to the entire body slandering me. Oh, we have some problem makers. Then Tatiana Penas is the one leading that, that sort of thing. She would send emails to the entire body focused on that. She would there was one email where she actually threatened people, and it had nothing to do with me. It was another PC that, because she saw we had a dictator of a chair. She had posted on social media how she did not like this. And so Julie did not approve of her public criticism that she had towards Julie. And so she sent an email to everyone threatening, if I see that there's anything being put out there, I'm going to go after you I'm going to go after you in the court. So she was threatening court action. And this is after Julie blamed everything in the world on me. This is months and months of, oh, it's because of Tatiana, oh, Tatiana did this, Tatiana. And I'm just like, okay. And then I saw that she targeted my children. Her bullying extended to how she treated my children. They had done she made a PowerPoint presentation to thank the volunteers for the 2022 election. Thanked everyone except anyone who only supported for the city council race, who only supported my friend. If they were not helping with the other candidate, the golden calf that I will never ever bow down to, that guy, if they were not helping out with him in any way, if they were just there to help this other campaign, then they were not given any thanks. And on top of that, in the presentation, there is one part that it opens to a page and it's thanking all the children that were involved. Now, everyone who knows me knows I'm usually carrying a kid with me. And I'm not afraid to go gather signatures and talk to voters with one of my babies, right? They forgot that I have kids. My kids were not part of the thank yous. And I'm like, well, that's kind of strange, because everyone knows, after you run in a campaign, you feel like you've been sweating because you've just been, and of course I was pregnant with my 5th baby at that point. So I'm like, I have worked my butt off. Yeah, I've worked my butt off not just for my campaign, but for all of these candidates. You're welcome, you guys. They got on the ballot, right? So, and they couldn't even, give some credit to my children, because when you're doing this, you are sacrificing some of that family time, right? So I'm like, okay, no big deal. And I just made a little comment on our Telegram about, well, there were these people that were forgotten. Oh, and by the way, maybe I don't have enough of them, but my children were forgotten too. And you know what she did? She sent an email to the body to try to reply back to that. And I was not so forward saying, hey, you intentionally did this to my children. I said, my children were just forgotten. Maybe I don't have enough of them, right? Sort of thing. And what did she say? She had a photo that I had shared, because I had shared, yes, my kids were helping on the campaign. I was showing them working, putting, materials together in a bag, right? So she sent in the email. She says, that was not intentional, that, we missed your kids. But if you look at these photos, they don't have the materials from the golden calf, right? They don't have the material. I'm like, what? Wait, so are they guilty now because you don't approve of them because you don't see the materials you want to see, or you're forcing us to support this? So I was like, okay, did you intentionally do this or did you not intentionally do this? Because to me, it sounds like you're just now justifying why they weren't worthy of any thank yous. So I started seeing that, she's crazy.
Yeah.
My opinion, she's a little out there, she does not have a limit of who she's going to target next. And at that point, I had been targeted. My parents had been targeted. Candidates that I supported had been targeted. My children had been targeted. Poor Joe was bullied, and she treated him poorly on the board. Because he was actually serving with her. She treated him awfully.
So then she responded to, once you got the tiara, what did she do?
Oh, usually when you get an injunction against you, that means, leave this person alone. Keep your distance from them. They don't want you around. Stay away from their property. And I actually only asked the court to make sure that she just, stays away from my kids and stay away from my property. The judge thought that her case, like what she was showing with my examples, she was just a little overboard, just too much. So he actually made it very strict, and I was willing to make it looser than that, but I couldn't do it right away. I had to go back to the court to do that. And so he said, like, no emails, no phone calls, nothing like that, stay away from her, that sort of thing. And I actually called the court. I was like, hey, we're serving together. Does this mean we can't be in the same room? And they were assuring me, no, that's not the case. And I was like, okay, and there had been several meetings that I went to that she was there, and she was fine. I didn't do anything. She just stayed her distance, that sort of thing. But what she did was she went and told, instead of being, stopping the slandering and whatnot, she went and messaged PCs and started complaining, and they were mad at me. I was receiving messages, well, maybe she should step down if she can't handle this. Mind you, I'm in my last leg of pregnancy at this point. And the reason why I really got the injunction was because I have to say this, you guys, and I hate to have to say it. I have issues when it comes to pregnancy. I get very sensitive. And I needed that relief.
Right.
And that's not okay, that no matter what you try to do to tell a person that's not acceptable behavior and stop it, it's not okay that they think that it's their right to continue to treat you so poorly. You're not alone. You're with a baby. And that baby was very sensitive, making me very sensitive. And so I was putting my health and the baby's health first. And she made it about me trying to turn this against her and trying to control her power and, trying to keep her from performing her duties. And I'm like, your duties are not to harass and bully someone. That's not your duties. Your duties are, to serve as a chair with a community. We have a body here. We're supposed to work together, not constantly fight each other. And I tried everything prior to that. I tried to reach out to Craig Berland, the MCRC chair, who I was the only one, well, it was me and Dan, that ran on the opposite slate of Craig Berland, Shelby Busch, Lawrence Hudson. They were one slate together, their group. I knew Shelby. I didn't know the others at all. And I
the slate that was endorsed by Carrie Lake.
That was a slate that was endorsed by Carrie Lake. Even though Carrie and I got along really well, I supported her a lot in 2022. I did a lot with her campaign. I was, doing everything to help push her name in my district and get events here with her and get her publicity and just, say how amazing she was, because I really did believe that. But Carrie endorsed them. I didn't reach out to her at the time because I wanted to be respectful of her personal time, and knowing that she was going through some litigation situations, I just didn't feel it was appropriate to be asking for, an endorsement. But she ended up endorsing it. We got everyone else's endorsements. We got everyone else under the sun, everyone who's credible that had been elected into office, the real strong conservatives. But Carrie Lake endorsed that group, and I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. I still won that second vice chair seat, and so I was in a position of leadership.
So you were one of only two out of the entire board that did not receive that won despite not being endorsed by Carrie Lake.
Exactly.
And so everybody else that won there really, and Carrie Lake's endorsement was really pivotal in getting those people elected to MCRC, and everything that we've talked about that MCRC has done, including supporting Julie McIlwain as she has gone after you with this pattern of abuse, which is really what it is. And interfering in that election, interfering in in the other LD elections, and even more that we haven't even talked about yet. You've told me about offline about them refusing to accept PC nominations, right?
Yeah.
So they selectively, and this is a pattern that we've seen, where they will only select the PC nominations from their cult members.
Mm-hmm.
And if their cult leading LD chairs support a PC, then they'll approve them, and if they don't, then they won't approve them. Or if it's in a LD that's not controlled by them, by their organization, then if somebody within their organization says, hey, these are the people that we need, they'll approve those, but they won't approve the PCs put forward by the chair that's not part of their organization. Is that all accurate?
Exactly. That's what has happened. That's what has happened. So I got elected into that position. I mean, even though I wasn't in their slate, I went to Craig, I went to Shelby, and I knew Shelby before. I mean, I was always supportive of her candidates running. She was usually helping out with the CD3 candidates, right? So I was always helping those candidates, and I got along with her. So I told her, yeah, let's get to work. Let's get started on this. I support you guys. We're on the same team and everything. And that's not how it worked out at all. I remember like right away, Julie McIlwain was not even being supportive of PC applicants that I first put. I initially had about 8 PC applicants, and these were people that had been prior PCs in our LD and probably just, missed the deadline for the previous election, or had worked really hard in campaigns, either the 2022 or 2020. So these are people I knew were like good individuals. Like, we need you on our team. And they were being held up. And she wasn't signing off on them. And I'm like, why isn't she doing this? Like, she doesn't trust, like, she knows these people. One of them was actually Melissa Gallegos, that office manager that the RNC had hired. Because Julie had so much like beef with Melissa, just because Melissa was running the office and not letting Julie take over the office like Julie thought she had right to. She didn't have right to that. I mean, Melissa was the way I saw it, Melissa handled things very professionally. Julie just wanted to do whatever she wanted to. And LD11 wanted to do, that's not okay. You have to respect whose office it is, right? Anyways, but she held that against her. She also held the fact that Melissa supported the one city council candidate and not the other. But she did have permission from the RNC. She did. So, and that's also because Carrie Lake endorsed that one candidate that I also endorsed. So anyways, so she was holding back these PC applications. I was trying to reach out to Craig. I actually did talk to Shelby and let Shelby know, hey, I'm being harassed by Julie. This is what's going on. This is what Julie's doing. And Shelby would talk to me over the phone like, oh, yes, totally understanding. Nothing. Did nothing to try to mediate, nothing to try to solve this, nothing to try to, come up with a way of working together. I mean, if we're trying to grow the party, especially in a district that's super blue, why are you rejecting people that are wanting to be part of this? Right. So, but that's what, the simple Reader's Digest version of what took place. So when I got that injunction, she used that against me and weaponized it against me instead, and said I was using that to try to limit her as a chair. And I'm like, no, you have no right to do this. She ended up going to our court hearing. I didn't bring a lawyer because I wasn't trying to spend money on this. I was just trying to, officially let her know, maybe a language that she could understand, that her behavior was unacceptable. And she brought a lawyer. Her lawyer argued before the hearing even started. I wasn't able to bring any arguments to putting any of my exhibits or any of my witnesses. He basically argued that under state law, this was politically protected speech, that we both were elected officials and it was an illegal injunction. I didn't know anything about that. I'd never heard of anything like that before. And honestly, I was trying to aim at workplace harassment. But in order to do that, you need to have an office. And we didn't have an office at that point. So I was like, I don't know how to tell this person, don't treat me this way. Don't do these things to me. And there's the harassment even extended to the point of her sending her buddy Jeff Sink against me, which Jeff Sink's a whole other ball game. But yeah, she had put him as an executive director. And I know that on that night of the election in November, because this is a little detail that's I think is important, I had two witnesses telling me that Jeff Sink was telling people that he needed to have someone to control me. And I was like, what is he talking about? What do you need to control about me? I've also been told from a lot of people that Jeff Sink has been pretty much the author of a lot of the lies going out there about me. And so Julie and him were working together. She put him as the executive director and told Jeff Sink to go and investigate me. So I was aware of that going on too. That's also what led to the injunction, because
Jeff Sink is also close to Carrie Lake, right?
yeah. I mean, well, that's what he says. And that's what I've seen, that he goes to I don't go to places personally with Carrie Lake. And I saw that Jeff Sink was, I guess part of her entourage at one point. And then he would always come to our meetings and say that he was working on her legal team. And I'm like, you're not a lawyer. How are you working on her legal team? It's just kind of weird things like that. Or that he was her spokesman. So at one point, I wanted Carrie to know what I was going through and just kind of see, hey, we're kind of a mess here in the county. Maybe you should be aware of this. Or, hey, be careful with Jeff Sink. He's kind of unhinged, my opinion. But I mean, if you go into that deep, which that would be another interesting episode of its own, you kind of see someone who makes up a lot of good stories, a lot, even about what he does. And you can fact check that. Anyways, but I tried to reach out to her and she had no interest, none. On multiple occasions, I tried to text her, try to call her. She had no interest. And so I was like, okay, that's where you stand with that. So I don't know where she is at currently. I do know that she has posted on Twitter to encourage people to sign Jeff Sink's petition too. So that kind of seems like an endorsement to me. I don't know if she still stands by that endorsement. That'd be interesting to see.
So what was the outcome of that hearing?
She got it dismissed. And I was like, okay, sure, that's fine. This baby's coming soon. I think about like 70 days later, I find out that she went after me for sanctions. And she claimed that she had $10,000 worth of lawyer's fees.
For one hearing?
Yeah. That probably lasted no more than an hour. Oh, by the way, I didn't even say this, but she brought a mob to the hearing. She brought, I don't know, like 15, 20 people. I was trying to keep this very quiet. It was a personal thing. I don't want people to know my personal things. That's the thing is people see an object. They see a candidate. They see I guess, like a product. They don't see the human. You know, they don't see that you have a family.
Right.
They don't see you have health. They don't see that you have to feel comfortable sleeping at night. You know, that there are, and politics attracts the best and it attracts the worst. And some of those worst are extremely scary. And you wonder, why are they believing things so much? And I've had a lot of experience with people with mental illness, and I have a lot of love for people that suffer through that. But politics shouldn't be the place for us to be having.
Right. Well, and the thing is, this is not just an example of Julie McIlwain, you know, one individual that has mental illness. That's not what this is.
I don't know what it is, but there's something going on.
Actually supported by Brian Ference and by Shelby Busch and by MCRC. And so that behavior there, it extends beyond her. I posted in yesterday's show notes on the show with Basil. I mentioned Michelle Swinick going off on a rant that I shared, where she says these people aren't even human; they're demons. And this, you know, she's a podcaster that all these people listen to. And yeah, that's one of the aspects of this cult is just like the left, they dehumanize their opponents. And in this case, their opponents are other Republicans. And this is something that goes all the way back to November 3rd, 2020. And in the days after that, and I'm going to, my members only podcast this week is going to be on the weeks between November 3rd, 2020 and February 6th, 2021, and how that was the nexus for all of this that we're seeing here. It's very deliberately programmed into the minds of MAGA. And, you know, so much of the thought forms and mind viruses that have resulted in this nationwide operation to infiltrate the grassroots and turn them against the Republican Party and against amazing rising stars like yourself, Tatiana, that, you know, this is not just Julie McIlwain. This is part of the greater operation. We have seen people just as unhinged and ridiculous and abusive and harassing in every other state that we've looked at. Yeah. So Joe says, what happened with the sanctions? So you had to pay that. Is that correct?
I did.
So you didn't hire an attorney because you were trying to save money. And now all of a sudden, young family, 5 kids, or number 5 on the way, and you have to come up with 10 grand for her attorney fee.
Because I wanted to tell my bully to stop it. That's why. I wanted to tell my bully. And she wasn't the only one. There was another bully. Her name is Ann Neiman, that had spent, you know, at least a year of constantly slandering and bullying me. But Ann actually left me alone. And I respect her for that. And so that went in a process that was more like, you know, that was acceptable, right? Even though Anne claims that, you know, I was trying to do the same to her, and I'm like, oh gosh, like, you not under, I mean, when you go around telling people that, you know, they were making claims that I committed 7 felonies, saying that in public to people. And I'm like, okay, really? Like, and that's just one of them. And to this day, I still hear that they're saying that about me, which I'm like, oh gosh, how do you say that? Like, wouldn't I be in jail? Right. But anyways, but
you have to take win. Yeah. And they know that they have no problem with lying about people and slandering people.
No, they completely slander, and to this day they still do it. I mean, they go door to door. I'm hearing it from voters even today. They're like, yeah, I heard that you're a Democrat. All right. Okay. A Democrat in a blue district that's recruiting Republicans to run against Democrats when there were never Republicans running before. And that was an easier way for Democrats to win.
Right.
You guys really? I mean, it's like, and that's what I meant by like mental illness. Like, I don't know if it's mental illness. I don't know if it's like people are brainwashed. I don't know what it is, but whatever's going there is not normal. It's not logical. It's not. There's something wrong there is what I mean by that, because I don't know what's going on with some of these people and their arguments and why they do it. It has no basis in logic or even consistency. And there's a lot of times I see examples of hypocrisy with them too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did have to pay them 10 grand. I
abandon their ability for logic. That's one of the symptoms of being brainwashed, is you lose your ability to apply logic rationally to the evidence and everything in life that surrounds you, the information that comes to you. So go on.
So I was going to say, yes, I did have to pay the 10 grand, and that was absolutely painful. That was a really big stab in my heart. It wasn't enough for her to bully me with tearing my character apart. And you have to remember, what was my logo and what is my logo? It's a heart. It's always been about love. It's always been about service. It's always been about, standing for these values, faith, family, and freedom. My faith means everything to me. Being accountable before God is how I've always tried to live my life. And so when I see people doing that to my character after everything I try to do to be the best, it's not okay. Anyways, so I did have to pay the 10 grand. And we thought about it, my husband and I, and I'm really thankful to have such a great man that stands by me. He, we've thought about it's like, should we get a lawyer? Should we try to, challenge this? Because this is not fair. This isn't just. The system is supposed to protect victims. And so we got a lawyer at that point, and we tried to ask for a rehearing of it. And by that point, the commissioner, who I don't know that commissioner, let me make that clear. One of the wonderful rumors I've been hearing out there most recently is that I sought out a judge. And what was told to me was that I sought out a Mormon judge. I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Oh gosh. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so I have noticed that some of these individuals, they like to target me for my faith. So anyways, they said that I sought out a Mormon judge to rule in my favor or to issue the injunction. That's just not how injunctions works, you guys. You go and you file an injunction. I did it at the Supreme Court. There's a long line of people there, and then whoever's the judge taking the cases is who does this process, and that's who we got to see. And then they choose the court to go to. I didn't choose a court where we had the hearing either. I didn't choose to drive 45 minutes north. So, and that was another lie that they've been throwing out there. So yes, the commissioner, he had been at that point when I tried to or challenge it and ask for a rehearing or whatever. It was no longer the same commissioner. It was another one, and a whole new one. Didn't know what the situation was, and she denied it. I believe it was her. Yeah. And then after that, Julie tried to go after me for another $6 grand because of me bringing up trying to rehear that. Right. She went, or it was reconsideration. Sorry, I'm not very good with law terms, but she tried to go after me for the reconsideration trial, saying that you need to pay me $6 grand. And I just thank God that new judge commissioner denied it, because that would have been even harder for me. Another thing that people don't know is that in between all of this time, Julie had me basically like locked down. Like I couldn't say anything. I couldn't defend myself. I couldn't, anything that I posted, or like if I sent an email trying to say what happened in this situation to the body, she was trying to use that against me. She's trying to say that I was mocking her. I'm like, how am I mocking you? I haven't been able to say my truth. I haven't been able to say what happened to me. And if I went to the LD meetings, anytime I've gone to the LD meetings and I try to say what happened, she shuts me down. When I'm an elected official in the party, I'm the second vice chair in the county leadership. Typically in a Republican meeting, you give, and we have so-and-so representing from here, a little introduction. And, and if you have some extra time, would you like to share anything? She would always shut me down. And there was one point that, like, I just had enough when all the hearings were done and I knew it was over and she didn't have that gag order on me. I tried to speak out and let the LD know about it, and Jeff Sink was shouting me down, calling me a liar. And then Julie was shouting me down, Anne was shouting me down, a bunch of them were shouting me down, treating me like filth. And Julie, she doesn't follow Robert's Rules of Order. She follows Julie Rules of Order. She told the sergeant at arms to take me out without even holding a vote, just because she wanted me out of there. I'm so many meetings that I went to last year in LD11. It was so awful going to them. It was just a hostile environment. And I was treated as if I was an enemy. And no matter what, I was like, you know what? This isn't about me. This isn't about them. This is about our community. We need to make sure we get candidates in 2024. So I went ahead and worked really hard to recruit the candidates that we have today, running for the state ledge. So and there's more on the way, by the way. But so I had 2 Republicans running for the state house and one state Senate candidate who's Republican as well. Our last January meeting, Julie thought it would be acceptable to do a presentation of why I was bad and how she was the victim in the whole injunction situation. She printed out her copies and she passed them out to the body. She did not give me a chance to speak about anything to rebut. She just totally slandered me and just said her stuff in front of these people and then had her papers so that people could believe she had the proof. And then after that, she went and did a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, talking about these candidates that I helped recruit. I recruited them so that people could see, you guys, I'm here trying to help us win. And these are the only Republicans that are running for these positions. And what did she do? She totally criticized them. And they weren't there at that meeting. Here they are being slandered. They're not there at the meeting. And I was so upset. I was so upset at the end of that meeting because these poor guys who put themselves out there, and this is how they're being treated by their own Republicans. But that's Julie McIlwain for you.
That's terrible. Diana Guzman says these same individuals claim to be the most holy Christians, but yet they hold in one hand the Bible and the other hand a knife and stab you in the back. And that is, every single show we talk about how these people use the Bible as a weapon against their political opponents. They use it even as a weapon against their own followers, as a tool for manipulation. And it's sick. This is not a Christian organization. They claim to be Christian nationalists, and it is not speaking of children, it is not a Christian organization. This is a cult. And Diana also says they hate Tatiana because she will not comply to their dictatorship. And that's exactly right. That's the other thing that we see over and over again, is that when they can't control you, they try to destroy you. And so, I would love to, if you're willing, I'm going to ask you here publicly, but I would love to have you back if we can work out a time to do that, to talk more about MCRC and your role, because we in telling this story, which it has so much to it and it's so important, and we're not quite done. We've still missed. I know. And I'm sure there's so much more that you want to tell too about even what's happened at the hands of your LD, but I want to move past that into MCRC. And I want to talk even about, on the state level and with Liz Harris and Felix. Hey, please don't. So he's fishing.
That's usually what happens on my end. So it's funny to see it on the other end this time.
Awesome. So we have a couple more slides here that I want to get to. And so this is kind of this shows a little bit, and this one I think we'll get to when we talk about MCRC. But this really right here shows is a testament to your character. So how did you respond? Just the deadline for submission of candidates for PCs and for candidates was just a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, we had the original deadline for elected PCs to gather your signatures to qualify for the ballot was April 1st.
Right.
And, I've always been, that's a funny thing. Craig Berlin actually had told me when I first got elected, before he was poisoned by Julie McIlwain and the weirdos, that he asked me to be in charge of PC recruitment. So, because that was my strength, recruiting and growing, that's been my strength in the hardest, situations. I'm really good at that. With PC recruitment, I knew a lot of people that wanted to get involved, a lot. And I couldn't recruit them because of Craig, because of Shelby, because of Lawrence, because of Julie. And so these people were waiting in the wings, a lot of them. And of course, if you want to have an effective strategy, you should be having as many volunteers to help you out. And I'm going to say it very clearly for those people listening for the first time. If you're a new PC, being a PC doesn't mean you go to a meeting every month. If you want to go to a meeting every month and just be on a social club, that's not what being a PC is about. Being a PC is about what you can do to help build the Republican Party. So if you can't make it to that meeting, but you're out there and you are effective at talking to people about the Republican Party and letting them know who to vote for, if you're registering voters, if you're serving in a community capacity, which we have several people in our LD that do that, and they don't get any recognition in LD11 whatsoever by the leadership. You know, obviously this is imbalance. We should be focused on the people who are the doers in the community, not people who are just coming to have a good meal and bicker. So, but what Julie started doing is she got mad at the fact that I did help get people recruited as PCs.
So how many did you bring on April 1st?
By that point, I probably had at least 52.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And how many slots are there?
Oh gosh. Ooh, like 100. It says on that.
Right.
It says on there on her presentation that she put there.
Right.
Yeah.
You responded. You brought in 52, including maxing out her precinct, right?
Yes.
And maxing out the precincts of, I'm sure, Rosado and the other key players in this, right?
Oh, yeah. Because they've all been, I've seen that they've not only been causing, and again, this is just a little tiny bit of the net. This is a huge mess that we're dealing with, you guys, and I've seen a lot of it. But the people that are being contested in the areas, it's funny because these are the same people that, what did they do all last year in LD11? We're going to censure the Republicans. We're going to hold them accountable because they're not being good Republicans. Completely fine doing that to the legislators, completely fine doing that to anyone under the sun, right? But here we have an election for a new term. It's a new term, okay? Doesn't mean that whoever was there before is an incumbent forever and ever and ever, right? So if people want to hold other people accountable and say, you have your time's up. So yeah, there are a few contested elections in there, and I could tell you they were the people that were causing problems in LD11, lying, making up stories, and not only in LD11, but they were causing problems throughout Maricopa County. I mean, it's sad when I'm hearing from a chair from another PC in a neighboring district or a district farther away, so-and-so's emailing my PCs. So-and-so's calling. So-and-so ended up at our meeting and was instigating this. Yeah. And then when you see that, at the state meeting, that they're all standing right next to Brian Ference.
Yep.
They're all buddy with him. I mean, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, you guys. So that's what ended up happening. So she went on total attack mode 2 Tuesdays ago at the LD meeting. I didn't make it because I was actually out of town. Otherwise I would have been there, and this would have been interesting to be in the middle of. But she was insulting people. She doesn't know a lot of these people. I mean, one guy, she was saying he goes to bed at 7 p.m.
Yeah. So this is, and what this is, she brought this spreadsheet. She distributed it to everybody at the meeting.
Apparently, yeah. Yeah, because there were several people that gave me the copies.
Right. And she read through her notes. So in these comments, and what this is a breakdown of each of the precincts, and it shows how many you recruited and where. And then she goes through and she's slandering the PCs themselves. She has these comments where she is slandering each of these PCs, and not every single one, because she doesn't know all of them, but she's just coming up with whatever she can on the PC. So this is the LD chair slandering the PCs at a county meeting. Incoming. These aren't even current, most of these aren't even current PCs. She's slandering these incoming PCs. This is just unbelievable. This is just like beyond the pale. Um, and she has to go. She absolutely has to go. And I wish you Godspeed in these contested races. And this is the best solution. And also I most people, you are a very special person. Most people in your circumstances would have given up so long ago and said, it's just not worth it. It's not worth this abuse. It's not worth everything that they've given you. And yet here you come, you just go out, you hit the pavement, and you bring 52 new PCs. It's just extraordinary.
And I do have more than that I did bring through the write-in process as well. But I know that they did recruit a bunch of write-ins, and I saw what they're trying to do to stuff. That it's funny because their hypocrisy of like, oh, it needs to be someone who's really active in this. I'm like, where are all these new people that I don't know where they came from? And I welcome everyone to get involved as a precinct committee member. I've never been against that. What I do ask people to do, though, is don't just jump to conclusions on things, and don't just believe someone that's saying something about someone. Come and meet them. And unfortunately, a lot of these PCs, because there are, Jeff Sink, his wife, Cheryl, her husband, Ann Neiman, her husband, Julie McIlwain, and they're all running their mouths and saying, crazy things like the example I said, she sought out a Mormon judge. What? Where'd that come from? You can't even do that. You can't even do so. I mean, these are some of the claims that if you have that many people willing to lie at once to a group of people, they'll be like, oh, she's terrible. I mean, people are afraid of me because they actually think that what they're saying is true. And that logic isn't there. Oh, yeah, she's helping the Democrats. Okay, obviously these people are not from our community. Obviously, like the people that they're getting them to believe this. Like, look at our numbers, you guys. We're far outnumbered by the Democrats here. So if you see that the actions of Julie and these individuals constantly fighting me, it's the actions that only benefit the Democrat Party. It's not helping.
Yeah, and to that point, you told me that the candidates that you've brought forward, these are uncontested candidates, and most of them that are uncontested in the primary, that are going to be running against Democrats, and that Julie and others within the LD have slandered these Republican candidates, and tried to even prevent them from getting their signatures and all kinds of things. These they would rather just endorse the Democrat, apparently. I mean, this is unbelievable. And again, this is not isolated to LD11 and South Phoenix. This is the way that they're behaving. Even MCRC is doing this by promoting same-day voting. When it's same-day voting on election day, and telling people that they need to wait and vote only on election day. That was the reason why all the funny business happened in 22. And they're repeating that. They want to repeat that. It's very clear that they want to repeat that. These people are not on our side.
We had those same election day problems here in our area, and I was a witness to it. So, I mean, and I want to make it clear, because I think we're running out of time here, but I want to make it clear that, at the end of the day, our focus needs to be on helping build up the Republican Party, not destroying each other. And when you're in a district like mine, there's no such thing as a rhino. You have dinos. You have Democrats in name only here, because there's so many Democrats, and they're usually the ones that get elected. You don't have a rhino. So when you're running after and calling people that they're a fake Republican, no, those of us who are Republican here, we're risking it every day. I face rejection from good friends that I've known growing up, because I was an open Trump supporter. I was facing rejection from people that knew me, but I've decided, you know what? They need to learn. They need to learn that they're misinformed. They need to see what a real Republican looks like. They need to understand what we stand for. And so that's why I try to live this, a life of a better example to other people. I hold myself to a high standard. And it's just, when you have people slandering you like that, and it's like, what in the world? Do you think that I was a criminal or something? And that's not the case at all. But I do welcome people to get involved. I'm happy to, invite them to be part of these campaigns and help these candidates. And if they're wanting to run for office, let's talk. I'd love to help prepare you to run for a position here, because we always need good candidates to run.
And the best way to get a hold of you is probably on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
What is it, at Pena, at for Pena, I think. You can find me there. You could also email me at Tatiana Pena for AZ. That's FORAZ at gmail.com.
Tatiana, thank you so much for being here. So we have, I will be putting up show notes. I'll be including these documents. I'm going to white out the names of the incoming PCs that they were trying to slander before I publish that. So all of that's going to be there. And Tatiana, I really do hope to have you back soon. There's still a big part of the story that I think is really important that people hear. But the story of, just it is unbelievable to me, and I think probably to many people, that these people would target someone like you, who has done so much to try to really help the party in a constituency that is one of the focal points of growth for nationwide for the Republican Party. And so just appreciate you. Thank you for being here. My Substack is biggertruth.substack.com. And that is where you can go for the show notes. And please do subscribe. I depend entirely financially on my paying subscribers. And so if you like what you see, I would really appreciate you subscribing. It allows me to continue to do this. And we've got a lot more. So tomorrow I've got Sheila Muehling on, former AZ GOP treasurer, and there's a lot of surprising stuff that she's going to be talking about how the state party has gotten into the situation that's in financially, and then Candace Zarni talking about many of the same things and the same patterns of abuse and just insanity that she's endured, and more on the state level, and from MCRC. So lots coming up. We've got a week from Saturday is the state convention. And so I'm just trying to put out as much content on Arizona to help people to get informed. Please share this, not just with other PCs, but I think that generally there's a path forward here. The party is not as crazy as these people want you to believe. The party is actually quite sane. These people, hopefully their time is going to come to an end through exposing them. We need to expose them, and voters need to know about who these people are, so that when we have contested primaries like you've set up, that these people can be removed. So again, thank you for what you're doing. And until next time, thank you all for joining us. And stay with me for just a second, Tatiana.